This is my mini saltwater ecosystem. It has fish, corals, and even sea anemones. This tank may look normal, but it breaks the most important fish tank rule. And you might ask, what's the most important rule? Well, if you're not familiar with saltwater tanks, you have to wait months, or some people even say a year, before adding anything like fish. Why? It's because the tank has to establish itself with good bacteria, which takes months. But what if I want to fully set my tank up in 3 days, with fish and all? Will this be possible? Or will I destroy everything in my tank? So I had to do some research to see if this was even possible. I found this guy named Aquadicted, and he said you literally have to wait a year, bruh. Ain't nobody making a tank with a rock for a year. But there's this guy named Josh, and he said 6 months? 4 to 5 weeks is generally best. But I don't know if we can trust Josh. That is a weird profile picture. Kinda creepy. But there's this person called Anthony GF, with a cute cat. Hello. 7 years ago, I started my reef tank with live matured rock from Petco. I bought some live rock and 2 clowns at the same time. And it did not cycle, and all fish survived. And this is what her tank looks like. This tank indeed looks to be thriving. So I kind of had some hope. Alright, so I'm going to attempt to try this. And please don't replicate this. If you want your own saltwater tank, just do your own research. And before you guys say anything,
God, this guy's gonna kill everything!
I have this huge fish tank, and if anything's not looking too healthy, I'll just put them in here. So I got started. I went in the fish store and I saw seahorses, Dory, Nemo, and some sea anemones. But more importantly, our foundation for our tank. I buy all the base layers and we'll begin with a 6-gallon tank. And for some reason, I wanted to make the tank black so everything will stand out really easy. Sick transition. Before we start crafting our tank, my main goal is to use all natural components, like real sand, live rocks, and a lot of natural ocean plants. And by doing this, it'll help our tank cycle even faster. And it'll kind of look like a tide pool. But to start our build, it was a wise choice to go with this Caribbean sand. Why? Well, it's real sand from the actual ocean. And it holds all types of beneficial bacteria, which kind of looks like logs of shit. So I just put an inch of sand in. But our next step, we have to add some rocks. I chose a variety of rocks with all different shapes and sizes. But the reason why I used live rock is because it will cycle my tank faster. But the next step requires my skill to hopefully recreate a beautiful rock design. And these features will include rock mountains, holes for fish to swim in and out of, and everything you think that wasn't homemade. And I'm gonna call it the structure. Yeah, I actually kept redoing designs until I accepted the fact that I'm actually a god at architecting and designing. After an hour, I just went with this. Now the filter, I wanted to make my own. Why? Don't ask me, I don't frickin' know. But really, it's important to include all these components to create stable water. It's kind of like an air purifier. So I threw these bags that kind of look like hacky sacks, like the ones that you would play with in 2015. So I shoved in a bunch of these bags, which I started with a sponge. Then I put a bag of ammonia killer in, then this bag that filters toxins, and ceramic rings for stability. And our filter will kind of look something like this. And I put a little guard on our filter so anything doesn't get sucked up and die. Look how great this looks. Thank you. So the next step, I have to put water because fish need water to breathe. I also added this wave maker which creates current like the ocean, and I put a guard on so nothing gets chopped up, and I left a perfect spot on the corner, and I also put in a heater and a light, and here are the results. And by now we transformed our empty tank into kind of an empty rock pile. It's kind of deserted. The next step was adding this bottle of Dr. Tim's. It is live bacteria that'll help cycle the tank faster. Then I let the tank sit for the rest of the day. And now this is kind of the more risky part, adding life. And like I said, in case anything looks unhealthy, I still have my huge tank that I'll transfer them into. Then on day 2, I decided to go to the fish store. And I may or may not have gotten a few items, and the first one being seaweed. It's kind of the equivalent of trees and plants on dry land. With this one huge piece I got, I thought I'd make like 4 branches out of it, and I zip tied them to this rock so that they could sink. So the importance of the seaweed is to filter out a lot of the toxins that will be produced. And they're kind of a necessity for stabilizing the water. Along with our macroalgae, I got a few other surprises that I thought would be a great addition. And the first one is called pulsing xenia. I kind of readjusted them a little bit so they can get the perfect amount of water flow. And in a way, these plants kind of remind me of those sensitive plants. And the coolest thing about these guys, they just look so elegant. They're pretty sick. Now, as much as I can have a fish orgy staring at these things, I got a soft finger coral, which is also pretty cool, yup. But the thing is, when you first get these corals, they're kind of stressed out, so they're kind of shriveled up. After putting all the coral in, I turned the tank off and went to bed. I woke up and I immediately checked to see how all the corals were doing. And honestly, for the first day, they aren't looking bad at all. But little did I know, in a few days, something happened that I was not expecting. So I decided to leave them in there and I kept going. So on the last day, there's a few more things that I wanted to get. And being me, I've always gone to the fish store like a bunch, just because I'm always buying new anemones for my other tank. And I thought I'd probably like to put one in this tiny tank. So I went over to the section and I saw this one anemone. And for some reason, I kind of felt a connection with him. And I thought he was perfect. So I adopted him. And I'd like to introduce everybody to Baka. And Baka is a green bubble tip anemone. And these guys have a life of their own, and they'll move around the tank without you even noticing.
Frick you, I will move wherever I want.
Dude, what?
Yeah, that's right, this is my tank. You sussy boy.
Sussy boy? Who you calling
Leave me alone. Sleep with one eye open, mate.
Well, on that note, I'll just let them be for a little bit. Just only for the rest of the day though. And since then, I kinda just let it do its own thing. Everything in the tank was honestly looking pretty decent. But I was honestly kinda scared that Baka was gonna start like a fish war.
Frick you, leave me alone. Stop looking at me.
Jesus, I'm like, what the hell happened to Baka? Well, you know, it's been some time and I've kind of been doing some thinking. It's really been like one day since Baka's been in contact with any fish friends, and I feel kind of bad. So I did research on what an enemy's favorite friends are, but after enough research, I found the most perfect friend. A friend with a symbolic relationship. But this journey wasn't going to be easy. This was a mission. A mission to unite Baka with a friend.
Frick you, I don't need friends. Feed me.
Baka, please, don't be sad. Well, it was simple. Just find Baka a new friend. Well, here he is. Not bad, right? I'm just kidding. I wouldn't torture Baka like that.
Bruh.
I'm just kidding. Baka's best friend is actually Starfruit's fish tank mate. Well, I secured Baka's best friend, so I took him home to introduce him to Baka. I mean, surely they'll get along fine, right? Well, that's what I'm hoping. So I tried to do this as stress-free as possible for our new friend, but since this is gonna be Baka's new friend, I wanted to name her Sussy. And right off the bat, she kinda just explored around and feeling her tank out, but I never really saw her acknowledge Baka. And in fact, Baka's gone. I was actually like, bro, where'd Baka go? Then I looked behind the rock. Yeah, Baka's literally behind the rock.
What the frick did you put in my tank?
You gotta be kidding me.
Oh my god, bro. Oh, hell no.
Hey, how's it going?
Oh my god, bro. Oh, hell no, man.
Well, he blew it. And it was now day 4, and he looked really depressed. And also, the toadstool wasn't looking very good as well. And I really didn't know if Baka was gonna make it, so I just took him out. He was indeed not in very good health. So I put him in his hospital bed. He's now in a really healthy environment, and I'll watch him to make sure he's okay. And that being said, I really didn't want to risk anything else, so I transferred everything out of the tiny tank, and I put it all inside of the big tank. In Baka's bed, I put a friend in there, but don't worry, the other one's just shriveled up. And the next day, Baka's looking way more healthier. He's the one on the right, and he's just filling himself up with water. And along with our corals, our zinnias are doing fabulous. And the last coral I added was a finger coral. In this tank, you can tell that life is in full swing. Here is a clownfish cleaning his anemone. And you might be wondering what happened to Sussy. To be honest, Sussy is kind of a tank. She never showed me any signs that she was unhealthy. But the problem was she was alone, so I thought I'd surprise her. I got her a new friend. And since then, they've become a couple. And as for Baka, he got fully revived and I took him out of his hospital bed. It took about 2 weeks for him to regain his health back, and as you can see now, he's doing amazing. So this video was a bust, and I failed. And if you want a saltwater tank, please do your research beforehand. But the more important thing is that everything in my tank is doing wonderful. And if you like this video, this one's probably even better.